Hey, I'm Pastor Robert. Welcome to Riverside Friends Church, our continued look at the book of Luke. And today we're going to be in Luke chapter 9, verses 13. Oh, excuse me. Luke chapter 9, verses like 1 to 20 something. I'm not sure. We'll see when we get there. Have you ever had a mountaintop moment? Maybe you just finished a great week at camp, or you finally aced a test you've been studying for. You had an amazing experience where you felt like God was right there with you. And you feel like you can take on the world. But then Monday morning hits. You walk into school to work and suddenly there's a new problem. A friend's hurting, a project's failing. You just feel totally drained. And suddenly that mountaintop feels like a million miles away. And even though you just saw God show up, you look at this new challenge and think, I have nothing to offer. I'm not enough for this. And if you ever felt like your tank is empty, right when people need you most, I'm gonna say you're in good company. Because today we're looking at a group of guys who had this like mountaintop experience, only to find themselves in a remote place, feeling totally inadequate. And so we're in Luke chapter 9, and by the time we get to like Luke chapter 9, things are changing. Things are starting to speed up a bit in the Gospel of Luke. Up until now, through the first 8 chapters, the disciples have they've been watching Jesus do the heavy lifting. They've seen him heal the sick and calm the storms. But here, the focus shifts. Jesus begins to entrust the mission to his followers, and he's challenging them to grow from being just learners to doers. And so let's look at how he prepares them for this mission. This is Luke chapter 9, verses 1 to 6. When Jesus had called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority to drive out all demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. And he told them, take nothing for the journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no extra shirt. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that town. And if people do not welcome you, leave their town. Shake the dust off your feet as a testimony against them. So they set out. Excuse me. So they set out and went from village to village, proclaiming the good news and healing people everywhere. So in these first few verses, there's like this rhythm that gets picked up. Jesus gathers the 12 together and he gives them power and authority. And then he sends them out, right? And so there are 2 cool words here that I want to kind of dive into and talk about. The word disciple. The first cool word is disciple. And it comes from the Greek word mathetes, and it means to learn. So discipleship is the process of learning to be like Jesus. That's what mathetes, that's what disciple means. It means to learn. The second cool word is apostle. It comes from the Greek word apostello, and it means to send. An apostle was an emissary. It was a representative sent from one government to another. And so Jesus, by calling these people apostles, is saying, I am sending you as a representative from my kingdom into the world. And so check this out now. Jesus disciples and teaches his followers how to be like him. He disciples them. They learn how to be like him. And then he sends them out to do what he does. So he disciples and he sends them as apostles. He sends them into the world like he was sent. So you remember, Jesus was sent into the world by the Father, and Jesus sends us into the world as well. And Jesus, when he was sent into the world, came with no staff, no bag, no extra shirt. He came in the lowliest way possible as a baby. And now Jesus is teaching them to be humble and to trust in the same way. He's saying, don't get caught up in whatever the world would have you get caught up in. Don't get caught up in who's popular or how much stuff they have. Just go. And he sends them out, and they teach the gospel, and they heal diseases everywhere. That's what the disciples do, the apostles do. Here at Riverside Friends Church, we have a mission. Our mission is to encourage our community to find hope and transformation in Jesus Christ. And so this is going to be my first point. that we are empowered for mission. We're empowered for mission. Jesus disciples his disciples. He teaches them to be like him. He empowers them so that he can send them as apostles. He sends them to other people. And so the mission is never about us. It's always about others. Jesus taught his disciples so that he could send them to other people. So the mission can never be about us. It must always be about others. Our mission is encouraging our community. See, our mission is about our community. It's about Mason City. It's about how do we encourage Mason City to, to find hope and transformation in Jesus Christ. Our mission isn't about us. It's about Mason City. And so I want to say this, right? You can measure how mature you are in your faith by how much you care about yourself versus others. I know how mature you are in your faith by how much you care about yourself or others. When you're a baby in the faith, you're worried about whether you are being fed. So when I have people say to me, well, I'm not being fed, I go, well, that means you're a baby because you need somebody to feed you. But as you mature, your focus is going to shift. It's not going to be how am I being fed here? It's how are others being fed? That's when you know that you're on mission with Jesus, when you're less concerned about how am I being fed here and how are others being fed here. See, C.S. Lewis, let me run with this. Let me run with this idea of feeding for a second. C.S. Lewis once described the difference between heaven and hell using this like imagery of a giant feast. In both places, and they're the same place, people are sitting at a table full of delicious food, but their forks are 3 feet long. And in hell, you imagine grabbing the end of that fork and you're trying to like maneuver it so you can feed yourself, but you can't get it spun around to eat anything. In hell, everyone is starving because they're trying to feed themselves. The forks are too long to reach their own mouths. But in heaven, they are all full and happy because they are using the long forks to feed one another. See, when we understand God's mission, we stop worrying about what am I getting out of this and start asking, how can I feed others? And so I want you to remember this. Your mission isn't about you. It's about being sent to the people around you. So Jesus, he discipled his disciples. He taught them to be like him, and then he sent them on a mission to teach and to heal. And they did, and word got around. And this is chapter 9, verses 7 to 11. Now Herod, the tetrarch, the king, heard about all that was going on, and he was perplexed, because some were saying that John had been raised from the dead, and others that Elijah had appeared, and still others that one of the prophets long ago had come back to life. But Herod said, I beheaded John. Who then is this I hear such things about? And he tried to see him. When the apostles returned, they reported to Jesus what they had done. And then he took them with him, and they withdrew by themselves to a town called Bethsaida. But the crowds learned about it and followed him. He welcomed them, spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and he healed those who needed healing. So something fascinating happens here. King Herod, the ruler of the land, he starts hearing about all these amazing things, but notice why he hears. Why does he notice? See, Jesus has been doing these miracles for a while, but Herod only gets perplexed once the disciples start doing them too. See, I'm going to say this, right? The world will take notice when followers start acting like their leader. The world will take notice when followers start acting like their leader. Herod didn't have a category for this. He thought, I killed John the Baptist. So who is this guy? And he tried to see Jesus because the impact of his disciples was so big it had reached the palace. People take notice when we are engaged with a seeking world. And this is my second point. First point is that we're empowered for mission. We are discipled, mathetes, we learn to be like Jesus, and we're sent out as apostles into the world. My second point is that we're engaged with a seeking world. There were places that the disciples were not wanted, And Jesus told them to leave when they weren't welcomed. They engaged the people who did welcome them. When the apostles met those people, they healed them and taught them the good news. Jesus' focus wasn't just on getting a to-do list done. Jesus' focus was on training people. We have to understand this, that Jesus' focus was primarily about training up his 12 disciples. And there's a leadership principle happening here. Organizations where leaders prioritize training others to do what the leader does. So organizations where the leader's focus is, I'm going to teach people to do what I do, they grow faster and into healthier organizations than where leaders prioritize getting the job done. And as leaders, our focus has to be less on getting the job done and more on training people. And this is counterintuitive. I get that, right? Because oftentimes we think, well, this has to be done, and this is that secondary thing. Listen, it's counterintuitive, but when we focus on people, the job gets done anyways. When we focus on people, the job gets done anyways. But when we focus on the task at hand, those people recognize that they're not the priority. And so this is like I'm in the doctorate program, but it's a doctor of leadership. And so this is what I'm describing is very basically the academic difference between leadership and management or administration. This is why good administrators, when you have a really good administrator in a space, it can be detrimental to the organization when they know how to do things, but not how to train people. Good administrators can be detrimental when they know how to do things, but not how to train people. The job gets done, but nobody gets trained. Institutional knowledge is carried in that one person, but isn't shared outward. So let me bring this back to our mission. Our mission is to encourage Mason City to find hope and transformation in Jesus Christ. If we want Mason City to find hope, they have to notice us. And they'll notice us when we are like Jesus. Herod noticed who Jesus was because the disciples were acting like Jesus. And so for the people of Mason City, they'll notice us when we are like Jesus. Let me put it like this. Sarah just got a new phone. Her last one gave up. And she has a portrait mode. And what it does is it blurs the background and enhances the face. It gives contrast, it sharpens the face, and blurs the background. It's a great feature. It takes great pictures. Learning to be like Jesus is like portrait mode. When the disciples went out, they were like Jesus in portrait mode. People didn't see just 12 random guys. They saw the character of Jesus so clearly that even King Herod started asking, who is this? So how do we engage a seeking world? I'm going to say it starts with repping Jesus. People in Mason City are perplexed like Herod and overwhelmed. They are looking for hope, but looking in the wrong places. This week, maybe look for one person who seems perplexed, who seems overwhelmed. Find them in the school hallway, find them at the coffee shop, find them in your office, find them at work. Don't just offer a fix, offer the same healing and good news the disciples did. Listen to them, pray for them, show them the kindness that Jesus showed the crowds. And when you act like him, they will start asking about him. When you act like Jesus, people will start asking about Jesus. Let's jump to verse 12 now. Verse 12 to 17. So the disciples have had this incredible experience. They've been trained up. They've been sent out by Jesus, sent into these villages where they have healed people and they have taught the gospel. It has been well received and they are excited about it. And now the crowds come in this remote place near the city of Bethsaida. Verse 12 to 17 says, the day was drawing to a close, and the 12 came to him and said, send the crowd away, so that they may go into the surrounding villages and countryside to lodge and get provisions, for we are here in a deserted place. But he said to them, you give them something to eat. And they said, we have no more than 5 loaves and 2 fish, unless we are to go and buy food for all these people. For there were about 5,000 men. He said to his disciples, make them sit down in groups of about 50 each. And they did so, and made them all sit down. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, and blessed and broke them and gave them to disciples to set before the crowd. And all ate and were filled. And what was left over was gathered up, 12 baskets of broken pieces. See, so the disciples, they just got back from their mission. They've seen miracles, but now it's late. They're in a remote place, and 5,000 hungry men, plus women and children, are staring at them. And the disciples' first instinct is, send them away. We don't have enough. But Jesus says, you give them something to eat. Jesus was giving them a chance to show what they'd learned. I think that's what's happening here, is that Jesus is giving them a chance to show what they'd learned. But they immediately went back to looking at their own empty pockets. We only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. So check this out. Even after seeing and living in God's power, they felt inadequate. Even after seeing and living in God's power, they felt inadequate. And Jesus said to his disciples, have this crowd sit down in groups of 50. They sit down and Jesus blesses the food. The disciples handed out. Everybody ate until they were full. When we learn to be like Jesus, we will exceed human limitations. When we learn to be like Jesus, we will exceed human limitations. This is my third point. So we've seen empowered for mission, that we are discipled, mathetes, trained up and sent out. We've seen that we are engaged with a seeking world, that when we look like Jesus, people will start asking about Jesus. And we've seen this exceed human limitations. This is the third point. Even after experiencing God's power at work in our lives, we often face new challenges and immediately feel inadequate, overwhelmed, or like we don't have enough to offer. Do you ever feel that way? Where you've seen God work in your life before, but this current challenge feels too big, it feels different, and we only see our deficiencies. We struggle to remember that the Christ who sends us is the same Christ who provides for us. We struggle to remember that the same Christ who sends us is the same Christ who provides for us. Imagine you're trying to build like a massive Lego set. Let me talk about like the need the disciples felt in this moment. Imagine they're trying to build a massive Lego set. You're trying to build a massive Lego set, like the 7,000 piece Millennium Falcon. But all you have in your hand is one single tiny 2x2 blue brick. And you look at the box, you look at your one brick, and you think, I don't have enough. Can't do it. That's exactly where the disciples were. They had 5 loaves and 2 fish for 5,000 men, plus women and children. It wasn't just not enough. It was laughably small. They didn't need a warehouse of bread. They just needed to put their one brick into the hands of the master builder. And this is where we address our feeling inadequate. Stop staring at your 5 loaves, your lack of time, your social anxiety, your feeling that you aren't holy enough. And when God asks you to serve someone or to share your faith, and your first thought is, I can't do that, recognize this as the remote place where we feel inadequate. Jesus didn't make the bread appear in the baskets first. He broke what was given to him. Jesus broke what was given to him and handed it out. Your feeling of inadequacy isn't a stop sign. It's an invitation to hand your not enough to Jesus and watch him multiply it. Take what you have, break it, and share it. I'm going to close with this. Today we've seen that Jesus doesn't just want us to sit and learn. He empowers us for a mission that is about others and not ourselves. The mission for Jesus' mission for us will never be about ourselves. It will always be about others. He calls us to engage a world that is confused and searching, showing them who he is by how we act. When we act like Jesus, they will ask questions about Jesus. And when we feel like we have absolutely nothing left to give, when the crowd is too big and our lunch is too small, he reminds us that his power starts where our limits end. So here's my challenge for you today. What are the 5 loaves and 2 fish in your life right now? What is that thing you feel is not enough? You're not enough for the task that God has put in front of you. Where do you feel that? I'm going to encourage you, stop trying to buy more bread on your own. This week, I want to leave you with this prayer. I want you to literally pray, Jesus, I don't have enough for this, but I give you what I have. I don't have enough for this, but I give you what I have. Jesus, I don't have enough for this, but I give you what I have. Jesus, I don't have enough for this, but I give you what I have. This week, go. Go into Mason City, not as people who have it all together, but as people who know the one who provides everything. Let's be a church that feeds the hungry, not because we're rich, we're not, but because our King is. Amen.